Bryan, Carman, and Paul Ahnert.
And we're live. Welcome to Road Less Traveled with Bryan, Carman, and Paul Ahnert, and our very, very special guest, Randy Rose. Randy, great to have you on today.
Doing good.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Bryan, you want to kick us off with our CD segment?
Sure. So every episode, we'd like to at least have 3 CDs that we've been listening to or we want to show to people. And did you tell Randy to bring 3 of his or not?
I did, yes.
Okay, good. All right. So the first one is I bought the Petra. What is it called again? More Power to You. And the reason I got this one is my favorite song on here is Road to Zion. If you haven't heard that song, oh my word. Because I've been going through some tough times the last 4 years, and that song just makes me cry. So I would recommend this to any Petra fan. And then I wish this band would come back and rock instead of doing CCM kind of stuff, praise and worship. But Cutlass.
Okay.
And this is live DVD and CD. I really like this. When they were rocking, they were really good. I mean, what they're doing now is good for them, but I just don't get into that style.
Yeah.
This is an older band. Titanic.
Oh, yes.
I never heard them.
This jams. That's really good.
Bill Mention, right?
Yes.
Yes. Bill Mention and Robert Sweet.
Robert Sweet.
Robert Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This, if you ever get a chance, check it out because this rocks really well.
Okay, I will.
Titanic. And those are the 3 I have.
All right, so I'm doing Christmas this week since I'm in the middle of day 8 of the 24 Songs of Christmas. And so I've got C.J. Grimmark's Christmas album. Let me get it framed there. And it's mostly instrumental. But if you know C.J. Grimmark from Narnia. And,
okay.
Yeah. And he did some work with Brian Stinson. Not Brian Stinson. He did some work with Destroyer of Death recently.
Okay.
So that was a really excellent thing. And then this one's kind of a darker Christmas album, but it's got a lot of traditional Christmas songs on it. That's Tarja. She's the singer from Nightwish. And it's got some very, very good dark traditional Christmas songs.
That's cool.
And this one you'll be familiar with, Bryan. Bride's Christmas album.
Okay.
This is on regular rotation right now. Randy, we've got with us Randy Rose from Rose and Mad at the World. Super excited to have him on today. It's kind of like getting to meet your I'm fanboying today a little bit.
Oh, that's funny. That's sweet.
So, Randy, why don't you share with us some of the stuff you're listening to right now, and then we'll get into our show.
I had to get this pre-authorized. I haven't got my CDs unpacked. We're at a new location in Burleson, Texas. We just moved about 2 months ago. So my actual physical CDs are packed up. So what I wanted to do for my list is tell you what my favorite Christian CDs are, kind of just of all time, my top 3, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I have been listening to them, within the last month. The very first one, kind of in order, is God Rules from Undercover. That's one of my all-time favorite, bands. They played, at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, the concerts every Saturday night. I always brought my friends to those concerts. So, I was in elementary school and I just fell in love with that. I just couldn't believe Christian music. I grew up really young, like listening to the Archers and real, just nice contemporary music, just thinking that's all Christian music was. And then this Christian punk band came out of nowhere and it was awesome. So that was one of them. That's my number one. My number 2 is probably the self-titled album Trouble. I listened to them from the their first album, The Skull or whatever it was. But they're a very, very heavy, cool band. I know the drummer was Christian. I know their lyrics had some Christian influence, kind of like how Narnia does or whatnot. I mean the movie Narnia.
Yeah.
So their debut album, Trouble, in 1990, the one they recorded on Deaf American Records, that's also one of my very favorite albums, and that kind of helped step me into the darker metal stuff. And that was actually before Undercover, with the earlier releases of them. But I mean, as far as the big albums that had that impact, it was that one. It had an End of My Days on it and stuff like that. And the third one, what was the third one? I have it on the phone that I can't see right now because I'm talking to my phone. Um, what was my third one? You might have to come back to me on that third one. I don't remember right now. I had it written in my notes up here, but
Yeah.
it's gone because I'm
All
talking
right.
to my
Well,
phone. I'm
that's
sorry.
cool. We'll come back to it because we're going to be talking for a while today. And if you come back
Okay.
to it, just throw it in and
I'll throw it
there.
in when it comes to me. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. So I know you recently. I got some of your stuff here. This is your last release, which
Yeah.
was you did a Kickstarter on that, correct?
Yes, Masquerade. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tell us about that Kickstarter process, because I know that one, and I know you had some setbacks and
Oh
some things
man.
that took place during that.
Yeah.
And tell us about the process and a little bit of the spiritual stuff that was going on during that time as well.
Okay. Well, yeah, that was a hard time. I mean, from start to finish, that album literally, I think, was about 3.5 to 4 years, and which is just insane. Because a normal recording process of an album, can be done in a couple months. It can even be tracked in a month. But the whole process does take some time. So, I started out real excited about getting a new analog console. I traded a whole bunch of stuff to get the same mixing console, an Auditronics 501. It's an old analog console, the same console that Boston did their first album on. He
Oh,
did the whole
wow.
album through that. So it's a really cool, small, odd vintage console. So I traded a whole bunch of stuff to get that. Started doing the record on that, and literally 1 week later, I was just getting an upgrade on the power supply at a technician coming out to the house. The thing just went up in smoke before my very eyes. So now, the main thing I was going to record this album on was done. And of course, I had to ditch a lot of my equipment to even get that. So that was a huge setback. I had some repairs done on it, and I had to go back and get some other equipment to do it, to bring my studio back to life to even do that. So that was a sad, hard start because it took a lot of emotional, effort to keep together when you're trying to do something very specific, for a very specific sound. But God did turn that around. And then the music, I had all of these songs written on a little dictaphone, just like literally like a little tape recorder, and I've never done that before. So I wrote them with the theme of whatever inspired me. Usually it's what breaks my heart with what's happening in the world and the way that God wants to work with the broken. That's my biggest thing. Anytime I hear or see or even sense that, my heart breaks, and then God gives me kind of a theme for a song. And then I'll just sing a melody of the song. I didn't need guitar, no chord changes yet, just a melody. And then from that, I wrote the whole album that way, which was kind of neat. So it was based on melody, which is kind of neat. So even though the stuff's heavy and dark, it does have some melody in it too. It's not just a monotone scream like some of the stuff I can do. But so that was different. So another thing is, my mom and dad got really, kind of sick during the whole process of that record too. Um, my dad ended up dying at the end of it. I had to move to try to help him recover towards the ends of his life. He broke a hip and got back after he broke a hip. He fell the same night after 6 hours at home. He fell and slipped, and then he broke the top part of his femur by it. It was like an almost impossible thing. So to him, he thought it was a death sentence. He was 87, 8 years old,
Wow.
and he had to be bedridden for 6 months. And my dad's super active. He works on cars. He got both of his knee replacements. He was doing well. I mean, he's real strong. So for him to have to sit down that long was just horrible. So literally we had to decide, we're going to stop our life and move, back to California to help him recover. And then, we planned on probably staying there. So that also was happening towards the end of the album. I finished mastering the album in Hesperia at my old home studio there, at my dad's house. So all of that was just insane. And I had a lot of sickness too. I had just a ton of sickness. I mean, so this is the satanic part of it, obviously. All this other stuff is just kind of natural and coincidence. I mean, I believe the mixer part blowing up. I believe that was something the devil had his hand on that too. I believe. I don't think that was something. Certainly wasn't God did that. Definitely didn't do that. But the spiritual aspect of it is this ridiculous sickness I had. I had asthma as a kid, really bad. Had a lot of bronchitis and stuff like that. And the COVID thing didn't really put me down. I thank God I survived that, but I just had a whole bunch of like heart issues and just crazy sickness issues. I was using my breathing, inhaler thing, my little nebulizer, basically, like all the time. And I was working with my wife at our daycare school that we did there for young kids. And there was days I couldn't even hardly get out of bed. And then the thought of trying to keep my commitment was just destroying me. I mean, it was so heavy on me. I was trying to, without incriminating my whole, history, all the weird personal stuff of the struggles, I was trying to give some updates, kind of telling people, even personally, what I was going through, saying, hey, this album means a lot to me. This is the core of my ministry. What I write about is, ritual abuse, trafficking, demonic oppression, and deliverance through Jesus. That's been my theme, from a long time ago. God has brought that type of element and that type of people to me. And for some reason, just anywhere. It started late elementary school and has never stopped to this day. So it was real heartbreaking, not being able to finish this up in a way that was, responsible, in my opinion, to the people that supported this album. They paid good money for it. And I mean, I put 6 times the amount of work that you would normally put in an album. But the thing is, I was trying to catch up the whole time.
Right.
So there's, I got to admit, I felt a lot of shame, to be honest with you. I know God didn't feel that way, but I
Right.
couldn't help the feeling that, people aren't, maybe knowing what's really going on. And I try to be as open and transparent as I could. But it was a very difficult album. I believe really the whole real spiritual aspect of it was about the content of the lyrics. Anytime you uncover darkness, the things done in the hidden places, the devil doesn't want that out, because it's so easy for people just to think of that as a conspiracy theory. That doesn't really happen in America. That really doesn't happen in the Masons.
Right.
That doesn't really happen, with all the cults and stuff. It doesn't really happen in the schools, in
Right.
California, and it does. In the mental institutions. They're a big, breeding thing for ritual abuse, and it's sad because that's where people go to get well. You think you can trust the county, to help a broken heart, and they exploit it. So I talk about DID a lot too, dissociative identity disorder. That's also
Yeah.
a thing I have a ministry for. So that all that was weighing on me, knowing that that's what I needed to deliver, and it
Hmm.
took a long time, but I did finish it. But honestly, my dad never got to hear it. he
Yeah.
he he died he died literally, I don't know, almost right at the same time, about a month after Christmas. So I
Hmm.
finished it and released it around then. So, but I know he heard it in heaven. I know he was pleased, and that's what he
Certainly.
wanted. He said, Randy, make sure you finish this album. I said, oh, I'm definitely going to. So yeah, that was it. Sorry, that's a long story, but that's kind of what it was like going through. It was a rough time. I mean, I
Yeah.
see
That's
I see the
that's what
glory
just
on
what I
it.
was. Sorry. What was that?
I see the glory on it at the end of it. I see God's hand, bringing
Yeah.
me through it, because honestly, surviving it was a miracle. And I do believe I got healed in that process physically. I don't feel like that anymore at all.
That's so
God
awesome.
has God has restored me a lot. So
Yeah, well, I remember getting because I was part of that Kickstarter. I was getting the emails, I was getting
yes,
the updates, and I was praying for you guys and
thank
praying
you,
with you for all that process.
thank you.
And I just was like, man, Satan does not want this album out because
No,
it was like one of those things where, um, it was just it's got to be the lyrical content. It's the stuff that you're bringing out to the light, and that
yeah,
brings me to this
yes,
album.
that's where it started.
Yeah, I mean, what was the catalyst? Was there an event, or was it just a?
It was several events and several people close to me that went through this stuff. So everything I ever write about, is creepy and ridiculous as it sounds, and as exaggerated as it sounds, it's a PG version of first or second person account of someone I know that went through that. So
Wow.
it's the real deal. And I had a lot of people, more people than you would think, friends in the Facebook community
Mm,
that concurred with that stuff. They said they were there. They know these
yeah.
areas. They know these hot spots and stuff. Um, it was huge. So it was heavy on my heart. And no one in the Christian music industry ever did an album that was dedicated to ritual abuse that I know of.
Yeah, I've
They,
not.
they
Yeah.
touch upon it, but I mean, this album is something that if you went through that, you would see how the devil used, the way of dissociating your brain to implant darkness in you and to force you into things that you would do later in life. And I can't imagine, being tapped into that young. I grew up in a wonderful Christian family. I mean, literally, I think I was in elementary school. I got saved at a Calvary Chapel concert, the Archers, of all things,
Yeah.
contemporary Christian band. I was playing there, but I was a little kid and I felt the move of God. I felt drawn there. And I mean, I swear, I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, but I knew when I accepted him, I was just weeping and gnashing of teeth almost. I mean, literally, it just broke my heart. And and I thought I was a good kid. That's what was so interesting. My 8 years, the presence of the Lord just overwhelmed me. And
Wow.
from that moment, I was his, and I brought all my friends to those concerts, and that's kind of what got me into Christian music. And then, like I said, seeing Undercover, the way they ministered on stage, that was just
Right.
unreal. I wanted to do that, and I was around 14 when I started doing that.
So
But
cool.
Songs for Ritually Abused is just a very heavy album about firsthand events that I know people that went through, and
Mhm.
wanted to report on them, say that you're not alone. The thing is, like when you have shame and darkness and oppressive events in your life, especially in the satanic realm, people just say you imagine that, or that didn't happen, because that's what they
Right.
tell you. That's what the people that hurt them say, and they do that. They make it that way, and
Right.
then they'll bring out another part of them that'll do life and forget about it, and then they use them just like a robot, like a program. So I mean, that stuff has to be exposed.
Absolutely.
Russ Dizdar, did a lot of ministry in that area. Tom Dunn does a lot of great ministry in that.
Mhm.
Um, Tom's a good friend of mine, and he was supporting of this movement too, and that was the same thing. That I went through a lot of stuff even on that album to get it done. It was rough, but I mean, I did
Imagine.
get it out. I got it out in a halfway reasonable amount. I think it was a 7 or 8 month process, but I did get it out. But it was a very inspired record, and honestly, it was kind of the fans that brought back Rose, to be honest with you. Before that, the last album was Into the Unknown. And that was 35 years ago or something. I mean, that
Yeah.
was a long time ago. So when I joined Facebook and people started like friending me saying, this music, was really influential on my life. I almost had a good friend that did pass away from natural causes.
Mhm.
That one of my songs on, I think it was, Healing, he played over on the night he was going to shoot himself. He had a
Oh wow.
45 sitting on his desk, and he was just going to do it. He had all the
Oof.
reasons he thought in the world to end his life, and he put that on a loop, and he got set free. He got set free
Wow.
that night, and he got healed. And
Awesome.
he lived a great life until he passed away with natural causes later. But I realized, oh my goodness, I didn't think this could have this impact. I did the music because the Lord laid it on my heart, and I had to get it out. It's like it's such a heaviness that if I don't write it, it's
Right.
hard to sit with, really. So I have to get it out. So that was all I ever hoped to accomplish, was just to please the Lord with doing something that I loved, that He gave me freely. I mean, I never wrote any of the songs; it just came from heaven. I wish,
Wow.
it's crazy that you think that some of that crazy hard stuff came from heaven, but you got to realize all the stuff that they talk about in the Bible is in my songs.
Yeah.
So that was a great album. The fans brought it back. They started, my Facebook fans started growing. They started coming together. I didn't think I'd find anybody. I was doing it to get close to a few Christian artists that I knew. That's all I was doing. Because
Right.
Facebook was new to me, and it filled up and filled up and filled up, and they wanted more rows. So I said, okay, I'm gonna try a Kickstarter campaign, because I was already writing that music. I think that song Witchburner was written probably about maybe 14 years ago, and I did a little
Wow.
video with my kids doing the instruments. I was singing, and they were playing as little tiny kids. It was real cute. But that was my intro into Christian music again. And it never left me. I always wrote, I always recorded. But as
Mm.
far as, there being a movement arose again, the God and the fans brought that back. So that was kind of neat. So that was where that Kickstarter started, and I've been doing it ever since. I haven't stopped. We've done Mad at the World stuff as well since then.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Mad at the World because quite a different style of music.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Brian and I were discussing your music as Rose, and I was trying to explain it as I call it doomy. Would you call it doom metal, or how would you describe your
Yeah. I
style?
mean, it is very doom metal. Some of the later stuff, could have been categorized as stoner rock. Like having that Sabbath feel.
Yeah.
They've kind of coined that heaviness and stuff. Of course, I'm not a
Mhm.
stoner, but I'm saying, that would be. Actually, I've never tried any drugs or alcohol or cigarettes, so I'm kind of a
Awesome.
weirdo in that area for God. Um, as actually my parents helped a lot with that. Being raised in a Christian family, I was lucky. But yeah, I think it'd be kind of just doom metal, dark '70s rock, with a
Mhm.
heaviness. I mean, of course, the very first Randy Rose stuff was very influenced by Danzig, and that was another reason, because I realized I had Christian friends and I was even listening to that stuff, and I couldn't bear it. I'd buy it and break the CDs like we all have done in our lifetime, which is just stupid, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
But I wanted to meet the devil where he's stealing people, and it was through that
Yeah.
music, in my opinion. So that's kind of why I even started, the Randy Rose thing, the first solo album years ago, right after
Mhm.
Mad at the World.
Hey, real quick, can you go through the messages so we can acknowledge people that are watching?
Yeah. So Daniel says hello, and Joshua says hello, and then Lee wrote, "Greetings, guys. All the best on your new release, Randy Rose. May God continue to bless and use you."
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's precious.
And
Thank you.
and so you mentioned Mad at the World,
Yes.
and so I believe you guys are currently working on, you and your brother Roger are working on
Yeah.
something currently.
We're working on our newest Kickstarter, which is the second installation of our trilogy. It's been spread out over probably 6 years, but the first one I think was about maybe 5 years ago, Hope. And that was a nod to our early years, some of the techno stuff. So that was kind of
Mhm.
like the first two albums. We wanted to bring that back because we still had a lot of, techno fans. I mean, that's who put Mad at the World on the map. I mean, the first album was like Pet Shop Boys, Depeche
Yes.
Mode, the
Hmm.
Smiths. I mean, everything that a rocker hates. But I mean, I loved it at the time. I was a kid, that in KROQ in California, that radio station, that's all they're playing. So we wanted to be, I think we were probably the second techno or electronica band. Steve Krumbacher was early into the game too, but we kind of did more of a European version of that. Um, but what was the first question? I'm sorry, I went crazy on the
Oh,
history.
I was just talking about the musical style differences, and
Oh
that
yeah, yeah. Oh, but yeah,
you're
but
working
but
on
but
something.
you're right. The new album, you're right. So
Yeah.
the first Kickstarter was Hope, and that was a nod to that era. You're right. I'm sorry, I went on a little rampage there. And then the second album was going to be a kind of a nod to the rock years of Mad at the World. Some of the Through the Forest on up to the rock stuff. Right before we went through our psychedelic stage, Mad at the World. We're kind of musical impressionists. We kind of do what we feel to a dangerous level. So we go a little too far in every direction, and we have a lot of different styles. This album is called Love and Despair, and it's definitely a rock album, but I almost feel like it's kind of a precursor '70s rock album.
Mm.
Definitely produced in a way that's decently modern, but there's a lot of harmonies on it. Roger can do some real cool, like the band The Sweet were influenced by them a lot on this record and stuff. So I mean, it's interesting. It's a very different take on Mad at the World, but it's definitely a rock album. I mean, it's most of it is relatively heavy. I wouldn't call it metal, but it's still heavy. It's a
What
hard
what,
rock album. It's cool.
what bands would you liken it to?
Um, I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of the Sweet, secular band, the Sweet from the '70s. Has elements of tiny elements of the Cult in it because I
Okay.
have that Jim Morrison type voice that marries itself to that a little bit. Um, I mean, it's mostly Mad at the World, but I mean, the inspiration was definitely '70s rock. So I mean, there's guitar harmonies, like there's some Queenish stuff in there, and it's not by any means a retro album, but if I had to categorize it, it would be a late '70s rock album, yeah, but with Mad at the World doing it.
Okay.
So I mean, it has everything in it. Like '70s stuff had Bowie and some weird, crazy stuff in there
Yep.
too. So there's that element because Mad at the World has always been an alternative band. It's never been a full dedication to anything. It's really obscure, you know, eclectic.
That's so. Tell me about the kickstart for the new project. How's that going with for you? Is
For the
the
for the Mad at the World one.
Yeah, for the Mad at
Um,
the World?
yeah, it's going good. We're actually almost finished. We're still
Oh.
working on getting our guest musicians in. There's one that lives locally, and there's one that we're gonna have to, do the track and send it out to them. And that stuff should be going out this very week. So I mean, we're in the 98 percentile of being done. We got a couple more tracks to do, polishing some stuff up. Roger's going to mix it. We're going to mix it together, and I'll probably master it. I'll master it here at this studio in Burleson. So, I mean, digital copies of it, it will. I would love to shoot. Honestly, I'd love to shoot for Christmas, but it's probably going to be the first of the year. So I mean, it's getting really close. And honestly, once again, this one honestly took a little bit longer than I'd like too. It's probably at the 8 month mark. So it's longer than I'd like it to be, but there's a lot of songs on there. The vinyls, you have to be kind of choosy because you can only get 22 minutes of music per side. So the CD is going to be where the entirety of the album is going to be. I think there's 14 songs or 15 songs on there, so it's a good collection of stuff.
And
but it's almost done. It's almost done.
Where can we get your merch?
RandyRose.com, Bandcamp, Amazon, all the digital places you can get Rose and Randy Rose. I have some other stuff coming up this year that's already recorded. I have another album completely recorded. It's going to be on Behold Industries. So that's going to be something cool for the people that liked my first Randy Rose album, Sacrificium. Yeah. It seems like it could be the next album between that and Healing. So it's definitely a very Danzig-esque, very dark and cool, but metal, but in a Danzig way. Very very metal and rock.
Right.
And that's coming out later too. So I got a lot going on, to try to juggle it and rebuild this new studio here. I did half the album in California and half the album here in Texas, so that's a little weird.
Yeah. So are you back in the house you were in, or is this a new place you're in?
This is a new place in Burleson. We ended up getting the house in California, but California right now is not the California I grew up in. It's the most beautiful place to live in, most beautiful place to visit and breathe the air. But it's expensive, and it's just not like it was. I mean, I grew up in California. I was born in 1971 and lived in California till basically probably 1990, and then I high desert for a while, and then from there, last 21 years was in Texas, and came back to California for 1 year when my dad passed, and we just got here literally 3 months ago. I mean, we got here probably 5 months ago, but have been in the house for about 2.5 months here, and that's the studio that I'm residing from now.
Okay, nice.
I see some guitars in the background. Which guitars? What kind do you play?
I have a lot of guitars. I have a lot of Epiphone Les Pauls. I like to get, believe it or not, I like to get the Japanese made vintage Les Pauls. They make them like the historic spec ones. So they're the people that made them for the Gibson, old Gibson, like the 1959 style. So they're expensive, but they're just an Epiphone, so they don't have a ton of value, but they play great. They play better than like an Epiphone the Les Paul that I can get now. But a lot of Les Pauls. I have Strats that have some single coil stuff. I like odd guitars. I like Silvertones. I got a Jupiter back there. That's a kind of like a Queens of the Stone Age guitar. It's just really odd. I play through Ampegs, a lot of vintage Ampeg stuff and some Marshall stuff. But I have a decent guitar collection, but it's all just weird. It's obscure stuff. I try to get weird stuff.
I have a Jackson Electric, like a dinghy. Dinghy, and then Eddie Van Halen 5150 series guitar.
Oh man, see, I wanted to get one of those. How is that?
I love it. You want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it because was actually thinking about something that had a humbucker in it. That wasn't just a vintage humbucker. The stuff I have is like vintage style.
On our last album, we got some kind of bad reviews for the guitar sound, and probably because of that Jackson. It's a mid-range cost. So I got this.
Oh wow, yeah, I like that.
And our sound is just really a lot better.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
what pickups are they? Are they Duncans or?
I don't know. There's like no name on them.
Okay.
So whatever Eddie Van Halen would use. I should know more about the guitar, but my drummer John could be probably watching. He's laughing at me. Because he knows more of the technical stuff.
He's the tech nut. Yeah, I'm kind of a tech nut. Yeah,
I'll
look that up.
Our songs, and he does all of our like recording and stuff like that. And he's trying to teach me all to do that stuff. So
that's cool. Yeah, I'm jealous. I want one of those. That looks exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. And then this is that Jackson.
Oh, I've seen that. You had that in a couple episodes ago, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
I recognize that. That's cool. Very cool.
Yep.
So you've been watching our show?
I've been catching up. Yes, I have.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like it. I
That's
appreciate you
exciting.
guys. Actually, it's a good ministry.
Yeah, we love doing this, and in your story, you know, I want to pick up on something you said is that you grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah,
You avoided all those pitfalls, even through your teen years, that
yeah,
so many kids get into,
yeah,
and we put people up there. Oh man, this testimony, and this guy got delivered from all this stuff, and
yeah,
and then there's probably many more people in the church, in the youth group, that have your story, that have your background,
yeah,
that need to see, this many years later, that you've got a cool look, you've got a cool sound, you're playing music that's on the edge. So talk about that a little bit. Talk about, encourage those kids to,
oh yeah.
break out of the mold.
Yeah, absolutely. What I can tell you real quickly about the way that I grew up in a Christian home with really really good Christian parents. My mom was a little singing traveling evangelist. She sang with her four sisters, and they traveled in a bus and did ministry. That's how she grew up. So I'm a son, of a traveling evangelist, and my dad was just came from nothing in Arkansas and worked really hard. Just he's the hardest working man I've ever seen him. He puts me to shame. I can never work like he works. So it was it was interesting because I had a very safe childhood. And I think that's why I kind of dressed wild, because I related to Christian music, and I related to the Gothic friends and the rocker friends, and stuff. They kind of the outcasts, the ones that were in the smoking circle, at school. I never smoked, but I had to go to that circle because that's where my friends were.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the Lord gave me this grace of growing in His presence to be able to deal, honestly, emotionally with the broken. I don't know. I don't know if I went through that, I could go back to it. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I could, because freedom is freedom. You should be able to go back and see that stuff. But I know, I pull from a place of security in Jesus. I know what He's done. I've been through deliverance ministry. I've done it. I've seen it. I'm all around it, all about it. It's one of the things that Jesus actually commands His Christians to do. That's not a optional thing. That's normal Christianity, the way that it was. We were supposed to cast out spirits and heal the sick. We're supposed to do as Jesus did. So that was an awakening, because I grew up, like I said, being saved at Calvary Chapel, which was kind of the Jesus people movement. The late 80s, 70s, 80s version. I was born in 71, so I kind of grew up a little bit into that stuff. And they just love. They had so much love. There's so much safety there. So that's why. I wish there could be a revival with youth groups doing concerts.
Yeah.
That was such a big tool to bring people, because everybody relates to music. Not everybody can have a conversation about God just like that. I can, because I grew up that way. It's just kind of the
Right.
way I'm built. But youth group and kids, you need to gather and get into music, get into the Lord, get into having a movement again. That's what I want. I'm hoping that'll happen. I will play any youth group. I'll come out and put again. Band. I've been a solo artist for all these years. My band, two of my members of Rose have passed away, which is just unbelievable. We
Oh
lost
yeah.
our lead guitar player Ben Jacobs about probably about 9-10 months ago.
Hmm.
Just heartbreaking. Yeah, he played one solo on the last Rose album, and then he died shortly after. So I mean, that's just preserved in history, his work. And then Steve Kamada, who came from Sanctuary in LA, that's his church that he was in.
Hmm.
He passed away, probably 17, 18 years ago.
Hmm.
So me and Mike Link are the last two surviving members of Rose. That's all it is. So I've been a solo artist doing this. I've been playing everything, and then I sent some stuff out where guitar work. Roger did a lot of my lead stuff on my last two albums, which was cool. He
Okay.
turned into be a really good lead guitar player. He was just a rhythm and singer guy. That's all he ever did. And he
Right.
decided about 10 years ago, I'm gonna sit down and learn lead guitar, and he got really good. And he actually sort of been training me in the way. I never played lead guitar until this last album, and I've started to
Oh,
get into that myself. So
no kidding. Okay.
yeah, it's new to me. But as far as the youth, it's going to come with you guys having to ask for stuff to happen. You need to have those Friday nights where you go and minister at the fair. You need to have concerts with local Christian bands and get
Hmm.
people interested again. I mean, it was such a powerful environment to grow up in for me. And I mean, like you probably saw that movie Electric Jesus. Have you seen
Yep.
that movie? You know.
I don't know if I did or not.
Oh, it's funny, cool, and accurate and sad all at the same time. It's
Yep.
kind of a mockumentary on
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s Christian music thing. It's
Mm.
really cool. I mean, it's actually really what brought a lot of people into the Lord. You know, certainly in my era. So for the youth, hold on. Realize that your brokenness is something that you can use to relate to other people, and it's not the end of you. Whatever the trauma, whatever
Mm.
families you're in, that a lot of this stuff starts in the family. Having to be brought into a family with oppressiveness and abuse and stuff like that, stuff that you can't just tell everybody openly, because you'll feel you'll get chastised or shamed. Um, but tell somebody, tell your youth, go to a church, tell someone what you're going through, because honestly, your healing is only going to come from Jesus. You
That's
you
correct.
can't cancel out darkness. It's great to talk to people, but I mean, darkness only moves by the power of Jesus. He's the one that defeated it. It's actually really sad. He was born to destroy the works of the devil. It says that in the Bible. He was literally born to destroy the works of the devil. I can't imagine that mission. I can't imagine what he went through,
Mm.
paying for my sins, everything I've done as a kid, everything I'll ever do, everything the human race will ever do, even people that won't come to him. He had to die for them. He had to
Yes.
make sure it was paid for.
Yeah.
So there's no place that you can't be saved from. There's no cult you can't be brought out of. There's no suicide pact that you can't be delivered from. There's
Yep.
nothing that Jesus can't take you from and out of. And that's my encouragement. Is just he is the way out. Just ask him. Ask him to show up. Ask him to show up now if you don't know him. Prove to me that you are who you say you are, because he will show up. He'll do the impossible.
Yeah, and we're all three on Facebook, and I'm going to go on a limb and speak for all of us and say, if you've got something, reach out on
Yeah.
Messenger. Reach out to us, man. Because
Yeah, me too.
that's what
Absolutely.
this is why we do what we do. We don't
Yeah.
do this, just to do something cool. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cool that we get to do this, but it's not why we do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of this is to reach people, and that's where I resonate so much with the broken, the hurting. I didn't
Yeah.
go through that in my Christian life or in my even pre-Christian life. I didn't
Yeah.
go through trauma and things like that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, those are the people that I feel drawn to,
Yeah.
that I resonate with, that I want to help. And so I don't know what it is, that having not gone through that, but the heart for it, like you're talking about, I can only be from the Lord.
Yeah. I believe that's the heart of Jesus.
Yeah.
What we're feeling here is God's, he says he weeps. He weeps for us. And then he
Mhm.
also, cherishes our tears. So he pays a lot of attention to our brokenness because he knows what it was. He actually had to go through it specifically and personally to be our savior. There's nothing that he didn't see or do or experience on the cross that's not familiar to what we're doing, and also just, growing up thinking you could, be successful with a career or a good marriage or a good life or being a good guy, that needs salvation just as much as anybody. I mean, that's everybody. That's everybody outside of what we're talking about. We
Yep.
all need God. I mean, because that's how my heart broke. I was a little kid. I thought I was just a little wonderful little angel with a halo. And when I met God, I realized, man, I was missing the whole point
You had little
of who I
horns.
really am. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. The halo with two fingers now. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
So I noticed in the background we've got, I think you got a little audience member back there, and behind
Do
you,
I?
Randy. Yeah. And
Oh, hi.
right away. um
That's
I,
just my wife.
oh, that's
Yeah.
your wife? Okay, I couldn't tell from the distance.
Yeah. I'm in the studio, but I closed the doors to keep everybody out. I'm kidding. I just closed the doors in case I was going to get loud because I kind of talk loud. I didn't realize that. I think from hearing damage of being a drummer all those years,
Yeah.
I kind of find myself shouting and I don't mean to. So
What?
if
Okay.
I'm shouting, I'm not trying to shout. It's passion, misplaced passion.
Yes. I noticed you've got family members playing with you on some of your albums. Talk about that experience. How cool that
Yeah.
must be.
Yeah. All of my kids are musicians. Randy Jr. is an incredible guitar player. He plays like uh, he can play every Beatles song. I mean, he's way more of a technical guitar player than I could ever be. He's amazing. But he's into alternative music, so he plays like crazy acoustic finger style stuff that
Wow.
I can't do it. I'm a first and fifth rock guitar player. You know, that's kind of what I do. If it's like Black Sabbath or Trouble, I'm all over it. But I can't do anything technical. Those are my weak points. And he also sings, and he's a songwriter. But he's real busy. He's very dedicated to his job. He's a barista, and he's just a sweetheart. But he's played on some of the early Rose stuff, and then also, you know, we did and you talked about Christmas music. My
Yes.
family and I, we did little Christmas albums or little releases that we sent to all of our family and friends, probably for maybe 13 years, and
Wow.
they grew up as little tiny kids singing on it. It was real sweet. They played their
Yeah.
instruments, and I did a
Wow.
lot of the music. And of course, I produced it, but
Mhm.
that's available somewhere. What I don't know. What is the place that has all that where you have your submit? I'm trying to think what that would have been. Would that have been Spotify maybe, or not? That's pretty commercial. There's some other format that I used a long time ago. It'll come to me like that last album will
Like
come
the
to me
last
probably.
album.
But yeah, having my kids play. My original hope was, and then my daughter Noelle. She's an incredible singer. I released the demo from Songs Spiritually Abused. Um,
Reverb
she actually
Nation.
sang the demo. She's singing one of the demos, and it has a word for word deliverance on there. So people probably get
Oh
free if they
wow.
listen to it. It's crazy. It's a very, she's singing a lot different.
Yeah.
She was kind of into what's that band? The Jack White produced the band, one of the bands with the girl singers. He played drums on. It was a real dark band that he produced, and we kind of mimicked that kind of style. So she kind of sounds like a cackling witch intentionally. It's kind of a real creepy song, but the words are great, and that's actually
Yeah.
about anorexia taking over someone's
Oh wow.
demonically and spiritually. That song was
Yeah.
actually was inspired by someone I knew that went through that.
Yeah.
So it was like I felt like I was going to lose them. So that song was a desperate cry out to God and to them about that.
Yeah.
And
Were
then
you talking about Reverb Nation or SoundCloud?
SoundCloud,
SoundCloud.
thank you,
Daniel hit
Lord,
it.
thank you, buddy,
There's,
thank you, buddy.
Daniel
Daniel brought that up.
SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's SoundCloud. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
SoundCloud. So you can find all the Rose Family Christmas stuff there. It is cute. I mean, like I
Is there
said,
any?
it's cute. I mean, it's not something that I would put out on vinyl. The music's good enough to be, but I don't know if they're embarrassed, because they're kids on a lot of the stuff.
Mm,
You can see the progression of them growing up through the music. I think the last one was probably maybe 5 years ago. I did that Tom Petty, that Christmas Time Is Here song, the end of Turbo Man song. I sung that and kind of did my best Tom Petty imitation. And then
yeah.
it brings me to my youngest, and he's the one that's still with me, still home. All the other kids have grown up and abandoned me. I'm kidding. No,
I
but
know what that feels
they've
like.
gone on with their own lives. But my son Scotty, he's going to be my live Rose drummer. He is insanely great. He started playing as a kid and then kind of just got into rap. Lord forbid. So that took him away from music for a while. There's not a lot of drumming and rap, but he came back to
Yeah.
rock and roll and roots. And he's kind
Good.
of like a John Bonham player. He's a
Really
very emotional, hard hitting drummer. So when
awesome.
I do gigs, anytime from now on out, it will be him on the drums, me on guitar, and I wish I could get some of my other kids to play because they're great musicians, but unfortunately they're just married to their career. They have to be.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
that's just the way it is. If you don't live at home right now, it's hard to make it in
You
music.
gotta
To be
work.
honest with you,
Yeah.
it's a hard time.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
lived
I
at home
got
until
a.
I got married. I honestly.
Yeah. I got a son that plays drums and also reminds me of Bonham in his
Oh, that's
passion and,
awesome.
and
How old
style.
is he?
He's married now. He's 21.
Okay.
But when he was living at home, in fact, his drum set's still down in my basement. Again,
Oh,
married, working, doesn't even have to play. So I get it. Yeah.
I didn't do music professionally. Again, I did music for their school projects. I actually wrote songs for like their school video. My wife did all the videography for all the kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the graduation stuff. I did that, and then I
Hmm.
wrote a mothership album by myself during that time. But I mean, there was a period of probably 10 or 12 years that I was just so consumed with being a dad that
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I certainly wasn't going to leave and play those shows anymore. So I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that kind of hurt and stunted the career, but it's not a stunt. I mean, to me, my first ministry is to my family.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I wanted them to have the best of me in all the time, and that's why we did the Christmas music. And it wasn't until, like I said, Facebook, that people reached out and said, "Hey, we want to hear more Rose," and that was interesting. The fans and the Lord kind of put me back on the map. So I'm grateful to all that. It wouldn't have happened without people, that wanted to hear us again. You don't know that until someone tells you, what your music meant to them. You don't know.
Right.
Like I said,
Sure.
I did it because I loved it. I did it because I wanted to be a different face for Christian music. I wanted to have a different sound. I wanted a different audience, really. I wanted kind of the unreachable. I thought what I would consider the regular, Southern Baptist church, because I grew up in some of that too. I know Brian did.
Sure. Sure.
Unreachable. A lot of those kids don't make it in the doors.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, Randy, it's really cool how we're talking about the internet, and look what we're doing right now. We're all in 3 different locations.
Yep.
And our show, we've been getting comments from people from like Uganda. I
Oh
mean,
my goodness.
you know what I mean?
That's amazing.
So we don't know your music, the music we do at We Are Resolute. We don't know who we're going to affect.
Yeah.
And
We
so
don't.
long after we're gone, this stuff can still be out digitally, and we're still going to be affecting people's lives for the kingdom. So
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I thank you guys for doing that. I'm going to do what you guys are doing soon. I've just been so busy trying to get the Love and Despair Mad at the World album, as I'm working on for another album at the same time for Behold Industries. So I haven't been able to catch up. I haven't even hardly been able to post. I think you guys probably heard. My original Facebook account got hacked
Yes.
right around my anniversary. So I had 5,000 people that took me 18 years probably, right? I don't know how long Facebook's been around, but a long time
Long
to
time.
get,
Yeah.
and lost them all, and then, some of them, I've had great relationships with some musicians, and of course their Facebook page is full. Some of them don't know that I'm gone,
Right.
because I haven't been reachable for a long time. So I got to, reach out to them. Hey, delete me and add me on this account. So that was horrible. That was definitely an attack on the family. Our house got flooded. My email and my Facebook got hacked all within 3 days of me and my wife's 31st anniversary.
Wow. That's
That was
horrible.
insane. It was at this new house too. It just happened right now.
Boy.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because I got that friend request from you,
I know.
and I was like, "Oh, I'm already friends with Randy Rose."
Yeah.
And then I saw your brother's post.
Thank God for that. Yeah.
If you get a request from Randy, it's real.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, cool. All right."
That's my new account, and it's up to 1,500, and they're all people mostly that requested me, which is neat. So I think they're people that will be a good group to rebuild. That's what I'm doing. I'm rebuilding. I
Yeah.
think the Lord's rebuilding it. He'll turn all this hellish stuff for his, for our good and his glory, if we're in Him, and I'm in Him. So I'm believing that the new group is going to be as good, if not better, than the old group. I want people that want to hear my message. I noticed that the new group is very heavily Christian, which is wonderful. I want the lost, of course, but I
Right.
need that core. We need to believe on the same things. If 2 or 3
Yes.
people are gathered,
and
I
praying.
think they can be gathered in prayer on that. I don't think we have to be in the same room. I think we're the people right now that are doing it.
Yep.
Yes.
God will show up and He'll do stuff.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So hey, if you want to get a friend request to Randy before he fills up,
Yes,
now's the
please.
time to do it.
I want everybody. I want the full spectrum.
So we got comments. We got Justice said hello, happy to be here, and then Steve McGowan said Zup, Steve, good to have you on.
Zup, buddy?
Daniel chimed in with SoundCloud, and
Thank you for that.
my wife popped in and reminded me of my son's drumming, so that was good.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Brian Dale Rainsberger said, "Hey Randy, and Merry Christmas, brothers."
Merry Christmas.
Brian's
I know him.
and he actually did vocals with me on our upcoming album that we're doing. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I know him. I love him. He's a good brother.
cool dude.
All
That's
right.
wonderful.
Cool. So
I love how we're interconnected.
Yep.
Like I've never
that's
met
what I
you
was
guys in
gonna say.
person, but I know you. I know you from how I know you, and that's what's so neat. And then being believers, we're connected in a way that a lot of people don't realize.
Exactly.
Right.
Being the body of Christ, we have a different mission and a different connection. We're on the same team in a way that most people can't realize, which is neat. I love that.
The gospel of Christ and music.
Yep, absolutely.
and it's a legacy. I mean, you're leaving behind a catalog of music. Both of you guys are leaving behind catalog.
Oh, he locked up.
He's frozen in time. He'll come back.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
am I back?
You back, buddy?
I'm back.
You're
I
back.
think you're back.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I was gonna say, is you guys both have like catalogs of music. How far does your catalog go back, Randy?
It goes back to 86. with the first Mad at the World. I was signed on Frontline Records. Me and Crystal Lewis were the youngest artists on that label. I was
Yeah.
14. I think she was 14 or 15 as well.
Well, I remember
Um,
that name.
yeah, I
Yeah.
loved her. She was really cool. She had a great ministry. She's still doing music too. I have actually, she's one of my favorite Christmas CDs. I'll put her on for a Christmas CD. If you never heard the Crystal Lewis Christmas CD from about probably maybe 15, 20 years ago, it's incredible. Has crazy studio musicians, like secular musicians that are just awesome drummers
Wow.
that played on it. It's really cool. You guys got to check that out. So I'll put that as my third CD. Okay,
All right, cool.
Crystal Lewis Christmas music.
We'll
It's
accept that.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love her
So-
voice.
Go ahead.
My wife and I were part of Calvary Chapel back in the early 90s.
Oh,
And I learned and grew, and we both learned and grew so much during our time with Calvary. And we got to be part of Harvest Crusade down in Fort
yeah.
Lauderdale.
oh wow.
And Crystal came out and sang. It was early 90s. And her voice, I love her voice. Just amazing.
Yeah, Harvest was one of our home churches after Calvary too. We lived in the Inland Empire. We lived in Riverside. We lived in Corona, but his church was literally about 10 miles away. So I think I took my wife on like our first or second date to Harvest to one of
Cool.
one of the Wednesday night meetings, and that was Crystal Lewis's home church. You probably know
neat.
that.
Huh.
She came from that church. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because for us, and I hate the way this sounds, but our time at Calvary Chapel was like crack. It was so good and so pure and so connected with everybody.
Holy crack.
And we've been chasing that ever since.
I know what that's like. I can relate to that. Actually, what I've been chasing my youth group encounter that I had with Randy Ziegler at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. I don't know where he is. I hope he's alive, but he was a hippie for Christ. I mean, he was a total Jesus people. He came out, super long hair, parted in the middle, total surfer guy from California. Wore no shoes on stage. It was he's the one that started the Christian concerts. He's the one that spoke and did the ministry at every one of those Saturday night concerts. And the Altar Boys, LSU, Daniel Amos, Mad at the World was there. Rose never got to play there. They kind of stopped doing that when Rose came along. But all the bands we grew up on played there, and that was the hot spot in California. That's what I want to have happen again somewhere. Let that happen. But
Randy,
I'm chasing that too.
As soon as you mentioned the hippie, you see what Brian Rainsberger wrote on the thing there?
I can't see it. It's too small for me. What is it?
He says your hair's getting really long, Bri.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty long.
I just had an inch and a half cut off too, and had it colored. So
yeah, yours is crazy long too. Yeah, well, I had so many years of having my hair just spiky and crazy. When I started getting into the rock, I felt, I better look the part. So I think it was like right before COVID, and I've just kind of I've cut it 3 or 4 times since then. But yeah, it's pretty long.
I used to have it totally buzzed because it saved money that way. Had our own
Easy to groom, just zip it off. I did that for a few years in the early Rose movement too. Yeah.
I'm learning how to do ponytails now.
Oh yeah. It's the only way. It gets in the way. Like if you're working on a car, it just falls right in your work. Sometimes you tie it up. It's kind of obnoxious.
I hate when I go to eat something and there's a strand that's like wild, and I'm sitting here trying to pull it out of my mouth.
Oh yeah, I
Yep.
swallow.
I know those wild strands.
Yeah.
I've eaten many a strands. Put it that way.
Yeah, I've eaten my own fair share.
Like
Nothing's as bad as the mustache. I kind of grew it for fun, like for the Mad at the World campaign. And then I saw the way it was on videos, like, oh, you can see my lips now. I have something to see. So I just kind of kept it. And actually, I shaved it off once and just regrew it back. So that's obnoxious, though. I mean, how do you deal with the mustache? It's getting in your drinks and stuff. That bothers me.
I can't grow anything. It kind of
Okay, you're good. You're clean.
Gets there to be.
Mine's real light. Can't really see it, but I don't.
I see yours. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't gotta get too bushy and long to get into drinks and stuff.
Yeah, it gets crazy. Yeah.
I just turned into a fashion show.
That's hot. Oh, it's funny.
Brian wants to know if Mad at the World has been approached for Immortal Fest 25 or any kind of plans for live shows.
I think I have been approached for it. Roger is the core brains of Mad at the World, and I do it with him. Mm-hmm. But it's funny, he's not the outgoing one. He's the shyer of the two. So like if we did a concert, we would probably regather the last few Mad at the World members. We have Brent Gordon still. We have Mike Link still alive, which is cool. So we can put together the band if we need to do. I mean, kind of like the original band. We would love to do it. But I don't know if Mad at the World's been approached. If if you book that stuff, you can contact me for Rose of Mad at the World. We'd love to come out. I've been recording too long. I want to get back out there. It's been a while.
Yeah, and you mentioned about coming out for youth groups and stuff. My son-in-law currently is approaching a church here that used to do shows back early 2000s, I guess. They used to do some live rock shows.
Oh, wow.
And so he's going to approach them about getting some live shows.
That would be cool. That would be wonderful.
So I might be reaching out to, if he's successful and talking these guys into doing it again. I might be reaching out to you for something like that.
That would be cool. We one of my good friends in like the late Mad at the World days, Ronnie Martin. You probably know Ronnie Martin from Joy Electric, and
I've heard that name.
Yeah, he's the brother of Jason Martin from Starflyer 59. They're both really good friends. They used to come to our early Mad at the World shows, and we always talked about doing kind of what you're talking about. What we call it a grassroots revival. Just starting back up from the very bottom, making sure we're reaching everybody, play locally. A Christian band used to be able to play 2 nights a week in their own city. When Mad at the World and Rose was happening. I mean, within California, that's where I was from. They always had it, and I don't see that anymore. And that's what I'm after, because I know kids have to be able to gather. We have a great youth group at a church that we go to. I go to Troy Brewer's church, the Open Door, in Burleson, Texas. He's a pretty gnarly, hardcore revivalist. He works with trafficked children and girls and stuff like that. That's their big ministry. So we've been going there for about 3 months and just love it. And they have a great youth group, but I don't know if they do music yet. I mean, they might have the youth group band play, but I don't think they bring bands in. So maybe I could talk to him about that too.
Yeah, get it started, man. We need to, because I'm really convinced, and I've been praying for this, that we need another really big Jesus movement before the end. Because we're watching things progress. We're watching, and I don't know what your eschatology is and what you feel about end time stuff, but to me, feels like we're racing towards Armageddon, and I just would love to see one more big Jesus movement before we get there.
And use music along with the Word of God to push it.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and I believe it. I believe what you're talking about has already started. It's kind of scary, heavy topic, but we're all about heavy topics here.
Yes, we are.
Judgment comes to the house of God first.
Yes.
So it's not the lost that'll be running for their life. It'll be the people in church that thought they were doing, but they're not that they're doing God's work, but they're doing their work. So, and I mean, I don't even want to name names, but what's happened in the last year and a half at some mega churches, and some good churches. I've been to a couple of them, even local here in Texas, has just been an upheaval of stuff being exposed. And I hate that it happens, because that person can be redeemed in 1 second.
Certainly.
Matter of fact, even in the broken ministry, he already probably is redeemed. I'll go that far,
Right.
But the point is, if the ministry is destroyed, people just gang up on that. The world is waiting for us to fail because they want an excuse. Well, they're like that. But the problem is, Christianity was never about anybody but us. It doesn't matter if the world is corrupt and Christianity is broken. We're all broken. The point is, Jesus says, "Who do you say that I am?" Who am I to you? And that's really what it comes to. It's a one-on-one encounter. So it doesn't matter who messes up what. But I believe that revival is coming, because I think he's cleaning house. I think he's getting leaders in there that really, are the most uncorruptible generation, I hope, to bring the movement of true revival. Because I'm definitely a crazy revivalist. Like, I'm into the healing ministries, Smith Wigglesworth and John G. Lake and all that crazy early 1900s stuff that happened. That means a lot to me. We're involved with a ministry of a guy that kind of does that work right now. A really good mentor of mine that does that work in a small degree. It's like an encounter him type movement. So I think that's a big thing.
A name like Wigglesworth.
Yeah, I love that name. Isn't that crazy? I think they need to make a real movie of his life, like a real quality movie of his life. Are you guys familiar with his ministry?
I've read some. I read a book about all the big revivals in America,
Yeah.
And I remember reading about him and was that the Azusa Pacific?
No, that wasn't the Azusa. That was Parham that did that.
Okay.
He was in England. He was in like
Okay.
Suffolk, England, I believe. And he was a guy that was just a plumber, just a real hardworking guy. Got
Mhm.
saved and got filled with the Holy Ghost, and he was just like one of the first of the Holy Ghost movement. And
Okay.
he had like something ridiculous, like 13 documented resurrections. I mean, like dead for days, coming out
Wow.
of the coffin type resurrections. Uh, Tons of blind eyes. I mean, I don't even dare saying one of his other crazy miracles, but I'll say it because it happened. Someone brought him a dead baby. He felt like the Lord told him to drop kick the baby. He drop kicked the baby, and the baby came back to life.
Wow.
So, like, I'm not encouraging drop kicking kids by
Yeah.
any means, but the point is, he was obedient to what he heard, and God
Yeah.
honored his faith. I mean, that's just crazy. So, I mean,
Unbelievable.
that is minus the drop kicking. That's the kind of movement that we're supposed to be able to do.
Minus the drop kicking.
Minus the drop. I mean, personally, I, I can tell you, I don't have the faith for a drop kick. I'll tell you that right now. I, it'd be jail
Especially
time
your
if that
40s,
happened.
man.
I couldn't do it.
But even with Jesus' healings, he didn't always just command the healing. I mean,
Yeah.
you put mud on people's eyes.
You're right. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very peculiar.
Yeah.
It was peculiar, and it was always on the wrong day. According to
Yeah. The Sabbath.
the Pharisees. Yeah. So I mean, we got to be
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a fan from South Africa tuned in today. Tim says, "Greeting, man at the world listener here from South Africa."
Oh wow,
So that's a huge reach.
that's cool. That's a great reach.
Yeah,
Well, Merry early Christmas. That's awesome.
that's really exciting.
That's very cool.
So we're getting close to or I guess we're at our hour now.
Yep.
Do you have anything you want to say just to leave with our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, everybody get out there and do what my brothers are doing on the station. Any platform that you have, time is short. I'm not a doomsday guy. I don't store stuff. I trust God for that, but it's coming. It's coming very soon. He's
Yes.
coming back. Um, and he wants a spotless bride. So there's going to be a lot of cleaning happening.
Yes.
But the thing is, that's not something we do. That's not something you have to do. Do not think you have to clean yourself up to come to God. Literally come as you are.
Mm-hmm.
If we start doing a bunch of stuff that we don't do, and we become really religious about it, we miss the whole point of God's work on the cross.
Yes.
He sees us spiritually as perfect, and I encourage you to see yourself through God's eyes. He loves you. He knows your brokenness. He has a road that's different than the road that you're maybe on right now, um, and he's inviting you. He's inviting you right now. So I mean, know him as the healer and the deliverer and the lover of your soul. I mean, it's hard to realize that he's a representation of the Father, but he's how we get there. That the Father has that same love. The Father is not just a lightning bolt. He's a lamb and he's a lion. Jesus is the lamb, the lion. I mean, and the Holy Spirit is crazy. I'll say it right off the bat. That portion of God, he's the wildest thing in the world. He's surprising. He's powerful. He's the mover and shaker of this movement. So I mean, a God that's 3 in 1 and a God that can live in your heart that you take with you. No one does that. No God has ever broken himself for their people. They fasted, big whoop. They've never died for the broken. They never died for the very people that crucified him. Only Jesus did that. He's the only God that's ever done it. And it's not just a Christian documentation. It's secular. This really happened. Jesus really did the stuff that they said he did, and he's real. I think that's why there's so much hatred, to be honest with you, because if you can find a way to deny him and justify your life by the non-existence of God because of the condition of the world, that's the biggest lie that the devil ever has. That he doesn't exist, but he exists. There's light in this darkness,
Yeah.
and it's for you. It's a personal thing. So
And
I just
God,
encourage
God's
you.
not annoyed with us either. He loves us.
God loves us. He's never
Yeah.
tired. That's the thing. Everything we bring to him, he already knows. We're bringing it to him for ourselves.
Yep.
Honestly, it's not. He's. I don't know how actively he's forgiving what we ask for, because I know we die with a lot of forgiveness of things we didn't even ask for. We're not coming to heaven with a list.
Right.
Right.
He sees us. He sees us love as his loved kids, And I didn't know what that was like until I had kids. I didn't know what it was
Right.
like to break for someone,
Mhm.
but he does. But he celebrates us too.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Man, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's good
Bryan.
having you on here too.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Well,
Very cool.
this was a great episode and a great segment, so I'm pretty confident we'll be having you back.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
Anytime.
great.
I'm available.
All right,
And stay in
cool.
touch on Facebook stuff too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome.
Love you guys.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Love you,
Love
man.
you
Thank
guys
you
out
so
there.
much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna put us out. And